Imagine waking up every single day with a mind so loud it feels like a crowded marketplace inside your skull. Thoughts crashing into each other, regrets from yesterday screaming, fears about tomorrow whispering, endless to-do lists shouting. You chase distraction after distraction just to drown out the noise because silence feels terrifying. What if the very thing you've been running from your whole life is the key to finally finding direction? What if the heaviest burden you carry isn't your circumstances, but the overflowing cup you refuse to empty? Tonight, I'm going to tell you the true story of a young man who lived exactly like that, until one simple, almost absurd moment with an old monk changed everything. A moment so quiet, yet so powerful, it still echoes in the lives of everyone who hears it. If you've ever felt trapped inside your own racing thoughts, if you've ever wished for just one clear moment of peace, stay with me. This story might be the gentle push your mind has been waiting for. And if a story like this already resonates, if you've ever felt that quiet ache of a mind that won't shut off, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, but it genuinely means the world to small creators like me who spend hours crafting these tales, hoping they reach exactly the people who need them. Your support keeps stories like this coming. Thank you. High in the misty folds of a remote mountain range, tucked between pine-covered ridges, lay a small village where time seemed to move slower. Stone paths wound between modest wooden homes. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys. Most people here lived simple, rooted lives, content with the rhythm of seasons and the quiet satisfaction of enough. But not everyone. Among them lived a young man named Kale, 26 years old, restless, perpetually dissatisfied. To the villagers he appeared driven, always hurrying, always planning, always talking about the next big goal. He read every self-help book that passed through the traveling merchant's cart. He listened to motivational speeches on an old cracked phone until the battery died. He filled his days with noise, music in his ears, podcasts while he walked, endless scrolling late into the night. Yet inside, he was suffocating. Every achievement felt hollow the moment he reached it. Praise from others evaporated like morning dew. The more he tried to control his future, mapping out 5-year plans, visualizing success, forcing positivity, the tighter the knot in his chest became. Silence was his enemy. In quiet moments, his mind assaulted him with every mistake he'd ever made, every opportunity he believed he'd missed, every version of himself he feared he would never become. One gray autumn afternoon, after another sleepless night, Kale stood at the edge of the village, staring up at the narrow trail that led higher into the mountains. He had heard whispers for years about an old monk who lived alone in a simple hermitage near the peak. People said the monk rarely spoke, but when he did, his words cut straight to the bone. Kale had laughed it off before. Monks in meditation, that was for people who had already given up. But today the weight was unbearable. With nothing left to lose, he began a climb. What he didn't know was that this walk would not give him new answers. It would force him to unlearn almost everything he thought he knew. The path was steep and unforgiving. Roots snagged at his boots. Cold wind sliced through his thin jacket. By the time Kale reached the small wooden hermitage, his legs burned and his breath came in sharp gasps. A single lantern glowed behind a paper screen. The door slid open before he could knock. The monk was smaller than Kale expected, thin, silver-haired, dressed in faded gray robes. His eyes were calm, almost amused. "You came," the monk said simply, as if he had been expecting him. Kale stepped inside. The room smelled of cedar and faint incense. A low table held a teapot and 2 clay cups. No decorations. No distractions. "Sit," the monk said. Kale dropped onto the cushion, words already tumbling out. He spoke of his endless striving, his frustration, his fear that he was wasting his life. He listed his goals, his failures, his plans. The monk listened without interrupting, pouring tea slowly. When Kale finally paused for breath, the monk lifted the teapot again and continued pouring. Tea rose to the brim, then spilled over the rim, then dripped onto the table, then onto the floor. "Stop!" Kale burst out. It's full. You're wasting it. The monk set the pot down and smiled. Gentle, knowing. Exactly like your mind, he said. So full of opinions, regrets, plans, fears. How can anything new enter when there is no room left? Kale stared at the dark puddle spreading across the wood. For the first time in years, he had no quick reply. The monk stood. Stay tonight. Tomorrow we begin. Over the next several days, nothing dramatic happened, at least not on the surface. There were no lightning bolt revelations, no ancient scrolls, just silence and more silence. Each morning they sat facing the valley as the sun rose. The monk instructed Kale to simply watch his thoughts. Do not chase them. Do not fight them. Just observe like clouds passing across the sky. At first Kale hated it. His mind rebelled. Memories flashed. Worries multiplied. Judgments roared. He fidgeted. He sighed. He asked 100 questions. The monk answered almost none of them. He only said, again and again, notice, let it pass. In the afternoons they walked the mountain paths in complete silence. Kale's instinct was to fill the quiet with talk, with planning, with anything. But the monk walked ahead, unhurried, forcing Kale to match the slower pace. One evening, as they sat by a small fire, Kale finally broke. Why does silence feel so painful? He asked. The monk poked the embers. Because in silence you meet yourself. And most people have spent a lifetime running from that meeting. Kale looked into the flames. For once he didn't argue. On the fourth day, something shifted. He sat longer without fidgeting. Thoughts still came, sharp, loud, insistent, but they moved more slowly. Some he recognized as old lies he'd told himself for years. You're not enough. You'll fail again. If you stop striving, you'll disappear. He watched them rise and watched them drift away. He didn't force them out. He didn't crush them. He simply let them go. That night, the monk asked only one question. What remains when the noise is gone?
Kale had no answer. But for the first time, the lack of an answer didn't terrify him. Have you ever tried to sit in complete silence for even 5 minutes and felt your mind scream louder than ever? Or maybe you've filled every waking second with noise because the quiet feels too dangerous. Drop your experience in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories often inspire the next video. Let me know what happens when you try to empty your mind. By the 7th day, Kale's steps felt lighter on the mountain path. Colors seemed brighter. Sounds sharper, yet somehow softer at the same time. He noticed small things he had ignored for years. The way wind moved through pine needles, the warmth of sunlight on stone, the simple rhythm of his own breathing. When it was time to leave, the monk gave him no grand farewell speech. He simply handed Kale a small, empty clay cup. Take this with you, the monk said. Whenever your mind begins to overflow again, look at it. Remember. Kale bowed, awkwardly at first, then deeply. He walked down the mountain as a different man, not because the world had changed, but because he no longer carried the same weight inside his head. When Kale returned to the village, everything looked the same. The stone paths, the curling smoke, the neighbors calling greetings. Yet nothing felt the same. He still had responsibilities, bills to pay, dreams he wanted to chase. But the frantic urgency was gone. He no longer woke up already exhausted from nighttime battles with his thoughts. When old doubts crept in, you're falling behind. You should be further along. It didn't fight them. He noticed them, watched them rise like smoke, and let them drift. When someone praised him, he accepted it without needing it to define him. When someone criticized him, the sting lasted only moments. He began to act from a quieter place. Decisions felt clearer, not because he had more information, but because there was less clutter blocking the view. One afternoon, a neighbor asked, "What happened up there? You seem different." Kale smiled and lifted the small clay cup he now carried in his pocket. I learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Just empty the cup. Kale never became famous. He didn't start a movement or write a best-selling book. He simply lived with more space inside. He still worked hard, harder in some ways because now his energy wasn't leaking into worry and second-guessing. He still dreamed big. But he held those dreams lightly, no longer strangling them with desperate control. Inner peace creates outer clarity. Letting go is often more powerful than holding on. Silence can teach what noise never will. Growth begins when you release limiting beliefs. And above all, empty your mind before you seek new wisdom, because a full cup can receive nothing more. So here's the quiet truth this story leaves us with. Most of us are walking around carrying overflowing cups, brimming with yesterday's regrets, tomorrow's fears, other people's expectations. And we wonder why nothing new can enter, why clarity feels so far away. The monk never told Kale to stop wanting things. He only showed him how to make room for them. Perhaps the most radical, courageous act you can take today is to pause, to sit still, to let the noise rise, and then let it pass. Your mind is not broken. It's simply full. Empty it and watch what flows in. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this story touched something inside you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it right now. Hit subscribe if you want more stories that remind you what's possible when you let go. And check out my next video, The Day I Stopped Hustling and Started Living. It's coming soon. Your support keeps these quiet, powerful tales alive. I'll see you in the next one.